Dennis Ross. Thank you.
So why am I here? If you look at my history, I was actually a Reagan appointee in the White House. I was on the National Security Council staff of the Ronald Reagan White House, so I was a political appointee during the Reagan administration. I was a political appointee as a senior appointee, head of the policy planning staff in the State Department during George H.W. Bush, and I was Bill Clinton's negotiator in the Middle East. I look at the Middle East and I see what's happened to our position in the Middle East. We sit on the sidelines everywhere except in Iraq. You know you're in trouble in the Middle East when the best news story is Iraq? I mean, think about it. With Iran, or the Israeli-Palestinian issue, or what's going on in Lebanon, the rise of the radical Islamists throughout the region, the best story we have today is in Iraq. And I have news for you. That's not a great story. We've not had a political or diplomatic surge to match the military surge. So what is our best news story, our best case in the Middle East today, is itself not a great case. And if we look elsewhere, what do we see? Compare Israel's position today to what it was in 2001. Its strategic position. In 2001, Iran was not a nuclear power. It is today. It doesn't have nuclear weapons yet, but it's a nuclear power today. It converts uranium ore to uranium gas. It enriches it. It's now stockpiling low-enriched uranium. It has stockpiled several hundred kilos of low-enriched uranium, half of what it would need for the first core of a nuclear bomb. And if we stay in the same path we're on, if we stay with the same policy we have, Iran will be a nuclear weapon state. Which Palestinians, which Arab states will then say it's okay to make a compromise with Israel? Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, has said, any Arab who deals with Israel will face the full fury of the Islamic response. That's what he said. That's what he said already. Now imagine if they have nuclear weapons. What do you think the impact is on the rest of the region? This is the situation Israel's in today. Israel today faces 40,000 rockets from Hezbollah. 40,000. So Hezbollah represents more of a threat than it did before. Iran represents more of a threat than it did before. And Hamas. Hamas runs a mini-terrorist state in Gaza today, and they have 2,000 rockets. Do you think American disengagement from pursuing peace was a good thing in terms of Hamas? Yeah, it was great from Hamas's standpoint. Hamas and Hezbollah and all the radical Islamists, what they need is the sense that there is no possibility of peace. No hope. That's what they prey on. So when the administration walked away from pursuing peace, they created a perfect environment for Hamas to grow stronger. And guess what? They did. You don't pursue peace because you know you can always achieve it. You don't always engage because you know what the result is going to be. But disengagement produces a result you can always predict. When we sit on the sidelines, guess who grows stronger in the Middle East? And guess who suffers in the Middle East? Israel's strategic position today is more threatened. It is more threatened because we sit on the sidelines. And that's the point. When I look at Senator Obama, and I was with him on the trip, what did I see? I saw someone who understands Israel's predicament. I saw someone who understands that those who threaten Israel threaten us. That we have a bond with Israel not simply because of values, but also because of interests. Because those who threaten them threaten us. When he was there, he talked about engagement with Iran based on a principle. The principle is engagement without illusion. No false understanding, no false expectations. Why do you engage with Iran? Because the current approach doesn't work. And the Europeans hesitate to put more pressures on the Iranians because they fear, their publics fear, there's a slippery slope to confrontation. Now, if we're talking to the Iranians, that creates a cover for them to do more. If we're not talking to the Iranians, it denies them the cover to do more. Oftentimes you engage because you have to determine whether there's a way to reach an agreement or not. What the Israelis understand is if you use force against Iran, well, you got 40,000 rockets to the north. You got Hamas to the south. Now, for sure, from an Israeli standpoint, if you can't prevent this, And if they decide that there's a threat to Israel's very existence, Israel will do whatever it takes to survive. But their first preference is diplomacy. So what did I see on this trip with Senator Obama? What I saw was him going and talking to them, all the Israeli leaders, about the Iranian issue as his first preoccupation. So he said, let's talk about what it is you think can be effective to prevent them from going nuclear. And the Israelis raised in these meetings a number of suggestions, which he then took to Europe and presented to Chancellor Merkel in Germany, to President Sarkozy in France, and to Prime Minister Brown in the UK. During this trip, he said, look, we have only one president at a time. I'm not here to make policy. But what did he do? He took the Israeli suggestions, and some of those suggestions that he took, the Europeans are now actually seeing if they can act on. So, of course, we have only one administration at a time. I came back and I said to some people in the administration, he did your work for you. What I saw in Senator Obama, I want to put in an additional perspective. You know, when I come and I talk about him, I'm talking about him through a certain perspective, the perspective of my experience. I've had probably 100 meetings. I've been in probably 100 meetings with the presidents I've worked for with their counterparts internationally. Multiply by a factor of 5 or more the number of meetings with secretaries of state meeting with leaders internationally. And as our negotiator in the Middle East during President Clinton's administration for 8 years, I had a very large number of my own meetings with leaders. So you know the one thing I know what it takes to be effective with other countries' leaders. I know it from experience, I know it intuitively, I know it instinctively. I've seen it, I've lived it. So when I was with him, and I saw him dealing in Israel with the Israeli leaders, I saw him meeting with the European leaders, I saw someone who represents first a unique talent. I saw someone who immediately created a bond with those he was dealing with, who knew how to turn every meeting into a focal point that was the right focal point, and who will be, if he's president, extraordinarily effective. It isn't only that he's effective publicly. I saw how effective he is in private. Before the trip, I was for him, I had some exposure to him, but you need to know, I was not an early public supporter of Obama's, not because I didn't like him. I got to know him in 2005. I was very impressed with him, but I was President Clinton's negotiator for 8 years, so guess what? I have a close relationship with President Clinton. I have a close relationship with Hillary Clinton. And because of that, I wasn't prepared to endorse Senator Obama at that time, because I liked them both. When Senator Clinton dropped out and I was asked by Senator Obama to go on the trip, I made the decision. I'll go on the trip, I will become public for him. I told my wife before the trip, I sure hope I feel about him after the trip the way I do before. Spending 5 days with him, watching him operate, seeing how he operates, I came back over the top for him. So I'm doing something I wouldn't normally be doing. But I do it from a perspective both of the stakes and also from understanding how effective he is. And we're at a point now where we just don't have the luxury of having someone who doesn't understand the way the world works today, doesn't understand how you put diplomacy together and actually make it effective, doesn't understand how you change the behavior of those whose behavior has to be changed, doesn't understand how to create leverage and act on it, doesn't understand the vulnerabilities of those of the Iranians and how to effectively work to exploit those vulnerabilities. We don't have the luxury of not getting it right. So if you ask me, why am I out here for Senator Obama right now? It's because I felt I couldn't be responsible to sit on the sidelines and do nothing. But I'm also here, I hope, to encourage you and to inspire you to take advantage of the time that's available. All of us are in this together. And I can think of few places where it's more important. I mean, this is a state that if this state goes a certain way, it's also going to help shape what the election's going to be. So it's in your hands. I'm here, but it's in your hands.